Elena had always known her father's secret. The whispers in the village about his affair with a woman from a distant town were never truly hidden from her. Elena's heart was torn, loving her father but feeling the weight of betrayal in the air. One day, as she walked home from the market, she saw a boy around her age standing at the gate of her family's house, looking lost. His striking resemblance to her father left her stunned. "Are you looking for someone?" Elena asked, her voice hesitant. The boy nodded, glancing nervously around before muttering, "I think I'm your brother." Elena's eyes widened. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. Her father's secret child was standing right before her. The boy, whose name was Luca, explained that he had grown up in a distant town with his mother, who had never revealed much about his father. It was only after her death that Luca had learned the truth. His father was someone important in Elena's village. After years of searching, he had finally found his way to her doorstep. Elena's heart pounded as she listened, torn between the desire to know the truth and the loyalty to her family. She invited Luca inside, unable to turn away the brother she never knew existed. They sat in silence for a while, both overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation. As the evening wore on, Elena realized how much they shared, despite their different upbringings. His eyes mirrored her father's, and his laugh was strikingly similar to her own. Elena couldn't deny that a bond had already begun to form with Luca. However, the thought of confronting her father about his past stirred a sense of dread in her heart. How would he react? Would he accept Luca into their family, or would he deny the truth to preserve the life he had built? Despite her growing affection for Luca, Elena knew this was a dangerous path. Her father had never once mentioned the woman he had loved and abandoned. The idea of bringing this up could shatter the fragile peace of their home. She wished Luca had never come, but at the same time, she couldn't ignore the tug of kinship that blossomed between them. The day Elena finally decided to speak to her father arrived. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over their modest home, she heard the sound of his familiar footsteps approaching. He entered, smiling, unaware of the storm that was about to hit. "Father, there's someone here you need to meet," Elena began, her voice shaking with both fear and determination. She gestured to Luca, who had been sitting quietly by the window. "This is Luca. He's your son." Her father froze, his face draining of color as he turned toward the boy who looked so much like him. For a moment, there was only silence. The room fell into an eerie stillness as Elena's father looked at Luca with a mixture of disbelief and guilt. He stood motionless for a long moment before his voice cracked. "How did you find me?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Luca stepped forward, his hands trembling as he spoke. "My mother, she told me before she died that my father lived here. I had to know the truth." Elena's father clenched his fists, the weight of his past catching up to him. He had built a life with Elena's mother, but his heart had never been truly free. He had left behind another family, another life, one that was now staring him in the face. Elena's father sank into a chair, his eyes avoiding both of them. "I should have never left her," he said, his voice thick with regret. "I should have been there for you, Luca." He looked up at his son for the first time, his gaze softening. "I'm sorry." Luca, though hurt by the years of abandonment, stepped closer. "I just wanted to know you," he said, his voice a mix of sadness and hope. Elena watched the interaction, feeling torn between anger and understanding. She wanted to lash out at her father for the pain he had caused, but she also felt sympathy for the boy who had grown up without a father's love. As the days passed, Elena's father struggled with the reality of his past. He had never intended for Luca to find him, but now that he was here, it felt impossible to ignore the connection between them. The tension in the household grew thick, and Elena found herself retreating to the garden more often, unable to bear the weight of the situation. One evening, as Elena sat on the porch, Luca joined her. They sat in silence for a while before he spoke, his voice tinged with sorrow. "I never asked for any of this. I didn't want to tear your family apart." Elena turned to him, seeing the pain in his eyes. "I know. It's just hard," she replied softly. "I don't know how to fix this." The tension reached its peak when Elena's father made a choice. He told Luca that it was best for him to leave. He couldn't bear the thought of losing the family he had built with Elena's mother, and the guilt of his past was too much to bear. Leave now, he said coldly, his words final. Elena stood frozen, her heart breaking. Luca had only just arrived, and already he was being sent away. Father, please, Elena pleaded. You can't just push him away. He's your son. But her father was resolute, unwilling to face the consequences of his past. It's better this way, he insisted. You don't understand. Luca stood at the gate, his bags packed and his face set in a mask of sadness. He had come seeking answers, but all he had found was more pain. Elena stood at the doorway, torn between the love for her father and the deep affection she had come to feel for Luca. I'm sorry, she whispered as he turned to leave. Luca gave her a sad smile. I understand, he replied softly, before walking away. Elena watched him disappear down the road, the weight of the decision heavy in her heart. She didn't know if they would ever see each other again, but one thing was clear: her family would never be the same. Days passed, and Elena's family fell into a heavy silence. Her father became withdrawn, consumed by guilt and regret, while Elena struggled with the loss of the bond she had begun to form with Luca. Their home, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt empty. Elena often found herself thinking about Luca, where he was, what he was doing, and whether he was okay. She regretted not being able to help him more, but she knew she had been powerless against her father's will. The world felt divided, and she didn't know how to fix it. Months later, Elena received a letter in the mail. It was from Luca. In it, he told her about his life after leaving their home, the friends he had made, and the peace he had found. He had learned to forgive his father for abandoning him, and he had begun to build a new life for himself. I will always carry the love of our mother in my heart, the letter read. And I will never forget the sister I never knew. Elena clutched the letter to her chest, tears welling in her eyes. She had missed him more than she realized, but she also felt a sense of peace knowing that he had found his way, even without the family he had longed for. Elena's father, too, began to change. The guilt he had carried for so long weighed heavily on him, and he eventually sought forgiveness from his wife. He admitted to her the truth about his past and the son he had abandoned. I've made mistakes, he said one evening, his voice raw with emotion. And I can never undo them. But I will spend the rest of my life making it right. Elena listened, her heart conflicted. She wanted to believe him, but a part of her knew the damage had already been done. Still, she could see the sincerity in his eyes, and for the first time in years, she felt a flicker of hope. Several years passed before Elena and her father received an unexpected visit. Luca had returned, no longer the boy who had shown up on their doorstep, but a young man who had made his peace with the past. He had come to meet his father once more, not out of anger or resentment, but with the hope of forging a relationship. Elena watched as her father and Luca stood face to face, their eyes filled with both hesitation and hope. This time, when Luca reached out his hand, her father took it, a symbol of healing and forgiveness. It was a moment of reconciliation, not just between father and son, but within their fractured family. The years that followed were not without struggle, but slowly, the bond between Elena and Luca grew stronger. Her father, too, began to rebuild the trust he had lost. Family dinners became filled with laughter once again, as old wounds were slowly healed. Luca's presence in their lives was a constant reminder that, despite the pain and betrayal of the past, love had a way of mending even the deepest of rifts. Elena learned to cherish the new family she had, while her father learned the importance of honesty and redemption. The moral of the story of Elena, Luca, and their father teaches us that even the deepest wounds can heal with time, honesty, and forgiveness. Betrayal and secrets may create painful divisions, but love, when embraced, has the power to rebuild what was broken. Sometimes, the ties that bind us are forged in the most unexpected ways, and it is never too late to make things right.